Good day, Chino Valley substitute teachers. Today our training will cover the EdTech aspects of your job as short-term substitute teachers during our distance learning period here in Chino Valley. Before your job begins, there are a series of things that will have happened. First, the teacher will have reported her absence in the ASOP frontline system. She may or may not have posted directions or other links inside that absence report. Second, the teacher needs to have prepared her students and let them know that there is going to be a substitute teacher this day, as well as where the students can find their activities and materials in a sub-day folder inside their regular Google Classroom or their regular Microsoft Team, whichever the students typically use. This is not going to be a day when the students do something differently. Third, she needs to prepare for you by making sure that the Meet link is made visible to you, and of course she has prepared subplans for you. The administrator for the school site needs to have done a few things as well. He or she needs to have a device charged and ready for you to use. He or she needs to make sure there is a clean space where you will do your job. And he or she will have printed an attendance sheet and any other paperwork that the regular teacher may have sent in or prepared for you if necessary. Finally, before you accept a job, you can take a minute to go into the Chino Valley Unified School District website, locate the school, then locate the teacher under Classrooms. There, you'll be able to tell if the teacher is using Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams, and you will be able to see if there are office hours. And you will find a little more information that may determine whether or not you wish to accept this job. Once you've accepted the job, you're ready to go. When you arrive at the school site, well before the first meeting time, you should report to the principal and make sure that you have taken care of with the principal any kind of COVID-19 protection protocols, such as taking a temperature and making sure you have a mask and or a shield and or gloves if desired. Once there, you and the principal will walk to the space where you will be conducting your class today. Once in that space, the administrator logs in to a device that he or she will leave with you for that day. It's always a good idea to keep a device plugged in. It's very likely that the device you'll be using this day is a Chromebook. Chromebooks are different from personal computers in that they are much more simple. In a Chromebook, you do not have to choose which browser to use, and you do not have to search through a desktop of different applications or materials. Everything is stored digitally inside the Chromebook. The administrator will also then log into our single sign-on app called ClassLink. And then the administrator will navigate to either Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams. At this time, it's important that you check with the administrator as to which Google Classrooms may be used that day. Elementary teachers may only use one Google Classroom. Other teachers in secondary will use at least 3 different Google Classrooms. So make it clear which ones you're going to be using, and of course you can drag and drop, or the administrator can drag and drop those to the top row of the app that you're using. It's also a good idea at that time to make sure you understand about office hours and make sure that you know where to find the virtual meeting links in the Microsoft Team or Google Classroom. And from this point on, you'll be on your own. But remember, there's always a phone in the room, and I always recommend having a cell phone nearby that you can use in case you need to either get a hold of an administrator or to take a quick photo of a screen during a meeting, should there ever be a question about student participation or discipline. So just a reminder, your job is mainly to host virtual meetings all day with students that are going to show up for their virtual meetings at their usual place and time. The students will not be able to enter a meeting until you are there, and it is important that you start your meetings on time and end them on time. Users of Google Classroom may choose to use either Google Meet or Zoom to conduct the virtual class, but the link for those meetings must be housed inside Google Classroom. The same goes for Microsoft Teams. Teachers may have chosen to use Teams meetings or Zoom, but the link must be housed inside the Microsoft team. And of course, the teacher will have prepared you with subplans, with class schedules and activities, and students will be able to access their materials and activities inside their classroom. Remember, you'll be taking attendance for each class or section that you meet with this day. Now that you know what happens before your day begins, let's look what happens as your day proceeds. First, we'll take a short tour of a Google Classroom. Then we will look at the meeting experience from Google Classroom, typically in Google Meet. This will be followed by a tour of Microsoft Teams, Teams meetings, and then we'll finish up looking at Zoom. When the administrator logged into ClassLink, it was a page that looks similar to this. Each of these little squares represents an application. The applications in the ClassLink that you are looking at when you are a substitute teacher represent a slim selection of apps that you will need for that day only. The administrator also navigated to Google Classroom right here, and once you've landed on Google Classroom, you and the administrator were to make sure you knew which card or which classroom you'd be using for that day. So let's take a quick tour of the basic navigation for Google Classroom. This is a landing page on which you see many Google Classrooms. Your teacher, depending on what grade he or she teaches, may have many classrooms. They are movable, so this is what I meant earlier when I said that you and the administrator should move the cards to the sequence that you will need them. And while I'm here, I want to show you that there are also a couple of other ways to navigate between different classes should you have perhaps a second period and third period, or an office hours, or meetings. These three lines are often called hamburger, and if you tap on that hamburger, you can see that the classes that you teach are also located here. And so if you want to tap on the hamburger while you're inside a classroom, you will still find this list, making it easier for you to pop into a new classroom should you need to. Let's go into this one. So when I tapped on that Google Classroom, I landed right here. This page is called Stream, and you can see at the top of the screen there are 4 words. Each of these represents a page. Stream is like the home page, if you will, where announcements are stored and made, and where short notifications about classwork are also posted. This Stream page is followed by, of course, a classwork page, where students will find classwork. We'll go into more detail in just a minute. The People page is where you find the names of the people who are affiliated with this classroom, including students. And finally, only in a teacher account, you can find a Grades page. So if you were in a student's account, you would only see these 3 pages. The 4th page, called Grades, which is not a great page, not super useful, but that indicates that you are in a teacher's account. The other thing that indicates that you are in a teacher's account is this gear over here on the right. Students don't have that gear. The gear always represents settings, and teachers are in charge of settings. Okay, so back to the stream where you land when you first arrive in the Google Classroom. And here is probably where you'll find a message from the teacher to the students explaining that there's going to be a substitute, where to find assignments or materials that are going to be used today, and a reminder that there's going to be attendance taken and what behavior expectations are. Students will see this, will land here before they come into their virtual meeting, and they will be able to go into the classwork page and scroll through it. Let's take a minute to look at the classwork page. Most teachers are going to have a topic area or a section that's called subday or substitute plans or something along those lines. And by putting things in an organized single area, students will be more easily be able to find what they're looking for. But it's possible that some teachers will not do arrange their classwork in this way. They may have things stored in other subject areas, and they will direct their students to find their work there. What I'm doing is I'm just scrolling down, and I can see each of these areas, and I want you to know that scrolling through and looking for something might be part of your job. What's not part of your job is to create anything for the students. Assignments and materials should already be created for the students. What is also not part of your job is moving anything. Just like you wouldn't move things inside a teacher's physical classroom, you wouldn't want to pick up and move something inside their classwork area either. You can open and look at the assignments though. For example, if I want to look at this assignment, if this is in the plans and students are looking at it and perhaps they're young and they need to be read to, tapping on it will open the assignment a little bit larger, and then view question right here will open up a full page that has the question itself, student answers, and any directions would be listed there as well. Now I'm on a page that's neither stream nor classwork, nor people, nor grades. Up here I see a couple of different things, and I want to go back to my more comfortable area. Navigating in Google Classroom is pretty easy because over here at the name of the classroom, you tap that and you go back to the home or stream page. This is where you're most familiar. These are the 4 pages that you were initially introduced to. These are the 2 you'll be looking at most often. So know that you can always tap on the hyperlink here to get back to this home page. Back to classwork. I opened this. Perhaps I needed to read this out loud to students, clarify what certain words mean. If I want to look at something else, there are directions here. And this has an attachment. This attachment is also something that you can open. You're not going to hurt anything by opening it. Just like that, it opens up in Google Docs. Just don't make changes unless the teacher has asked you to, and she is unlikely to have asked you to. To get out of this page up here at the top, all I have to do is close this tab at the top of the browser window. And I'm back in business here in the Google Classroom classwork page. So again, you may have to scroll to find things. You may have a student ask about rubrics or ask about a previous assignment. You may have to scroll through here and say, oh, is this what you're looking for, and help them. But you should never need to create or post anything in here. Finally, finding the Meet link for your Google Meet is important. And most, but not all, teachers will be using this link right here. Again, we're on the stream page where you saw the colorful rectangle at the top of the page and the name of the Google Classroom. And when one taps on this hyperlink right here, one is taken directly into the Google Meet experience. But occasionally this has a little eyeball with a line through it next to it in your teacher view. That means that the teacher may have forgotten to make this link visible. If the teacher has indicated students should use the Meet link stored in the colorful box at the top of their Google Classroom, then they need to have made sure it was visible. And occasionally when somebody isn't feeling well or has an appointment or something urgent has come up and they hire themselves a sub, they forget to do a couple things. So let me show you how to make this visible. Right now, my students, our students, can all see this. I see the Google Meet logo, but if there's an eyeball with a line through it, it means the students cannot see it. I need to go up to the gear, scroll down just a little until I see that same logo, and then over here, toggle so this is visible to students. Now you can see right now that the toggle is to the right, which means it is visible, and that's the way we want it. But let me show you what it looks like when it's not visible, just so you have that experience. It's not visible because the toggle is to the left, and I'm not seeing the color. On that stream page, let me show you what that looks like too. There's that eyeball with a line through it. Now, sometimes you'll see the eyeball with a line through it because the teacher is using a different link. She may not be using the Meet link up here. She may instead be using a Meet link that is stored here in the stream page or even here in classwork. She or he, the person you're subbing for, should make it clear exactly where the Meet link should be found. Again, this is the one they indicate, and this is going to be most common. You need that to show up. We're going to tap on the gear, scroll down a little bit till you see the same logo as should have been there, and then toggle it on. Don't forget to hit save, and you're in business. Now, the links that show up down here can still be Google Meet links or might be Zoom links. But either way, we're going to take a quick tour of Google Meet so that you are comfortable hosting a Google Meet when the time comes. Okay, well, since we're going to take a tour of Google Meet, let's go ahead and enter our meeting right here through the Meet link. Remember that the adult has to enter this meeting first, so even if students try to enter the meeting early, they won't be able to get in and talk to each other. They're each in their own individual lobby waiting for you to show up. I'm going to tap on Join Now. It says no one else is here. And it's very important to remember that with this meeting experience, you are not going to let anybody in who does not come through that Google Classroom. You're not going to answer a doorbell or allow somebody in with a personal account. This is a secure location for just Chino Valley Unified School District students. Now, you will be in a much more professional looking environment. So I'm going to turn off my camera down here. At the bottom, there is a white ribbon. You see I can turn off my camera, and I'm going to do that now so that our meeting here isn't as distracting with all the personal things behind me. While I'm pointing these things out, you should know that there is also this microphone button here. If the device you're using has either one of these buttons that looks red with a line through it like that, that means that the camera and or microphone are off. So it's good to know that, and of course this is the button you will use to hang up. I'm going to go ahead and move this back up and give you a really quick tour of Google Meet. Again, the kids are going to show up as soon as you drop in, and they will show up immediately. When there are 5 or more students in a meeting, they are automatically muted, but they know how to unmute themselves. Very recently, Google added a control area, anxiously awaited control area, and I want you to know where that is. It's in 2 places. And so as your students enter and they see a substitute and they excitedly try to introduce themselves or take advantage, who knows, depends on this group of students. Up here, if I tap on Mr. Head and Shoulders, I can see host controls. Tapping on host controls allows me to do a couple of things. One is make sure that I am not going to have kids randomly sharing their screens, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And I, having just met these students, don't need to try to control their chatting in the chat window the entire meeting also. So I'm going to turn off the chat window. And when I pop out of here, close that, I now have a little bit more control. Now, students can still unmute themselves, but coming any day will be the ability to, in that same spot, mute all students until you unmute all students. So keep an eye on that space because we may not be changing our training materials quickly enough for you to know. I said that that control was in two places. So down here at the bottom left, you see this blue shield or with a lock right there. That's the same exact host controls. All right. And I want to make sure that this is off because I want to make sure the host, the substitute, joins first, and everyone who isn't invited must ask to join. Your students in Google Classroom are, of course, invited, and you're not letting anybody in from outside. So we are ready for our meeting here. And I just wanted to show you it's here and up in that upper right-hand corner. Let's go ahead and continue our tour from this corner. We tapped on Mr. Head and Shoulders, and there's just me. I'm the only person in here right now. If you can imagine there being another 22 students or so lined up down below, you know that with this size box, you won't see all their names or little thumbnails there, but you can scroll through them. And so that is one of the ways you might choose to take attendance, by simply scrolling through and checking off the names. You're taking a paper attendance, and so if you want to go through and do it that way, that is one easy way to do it. Another way would be to have them do an old-fashioned roll call, but by doing that, you're asking the students to unmute themselves and then mute themselves again, and that might not be something that the age group you're working with is capable of doing, nor is it necessarily something you want to encourage, but it's entirely up to you because that is one method. I'm going to point out where the chat window is again. Next to Mr. Head and Shoulders, there's a chat. In Google Meet, if you have got chat turned on, this is turned on, people send messages to everyone. They don't get to send messages to individuals. So you will be able to see if people are chatting in the chat window. Their messages are 100% open to everybody else who's in the meeting. Okay. Also over here, you notice this little green popping in and out there. That indicates that my microphone is on. When you're looking in Mr. Head and Shoulders, you see that same green indicator. It will be indicating for anybody in this list. And so if you're wondering who's talking or who has not been able to turn off their microphone, you can know, first of all, who it is by looking for the green. And when you float over that person's face, you will have the ability to mute them yourself. All right, that's important to know because some little ones won't be able to find that button for themselves. Also, when you have the guests in here, when you have all your invited students in here and you're conducting a meeting, it is good to know that should you need to, you may remove a student. Know that when you remove a student, he or she will not be able to return to the meeting until that meeting link has been reset. And that is another update that's coming, a little bit more control as far as that goes. But if you have a list of students here and one of them needs to be removed, if you tap on that student's name, there is a circle with a line through it that means remove from meeting. I'm going to close this. I'm going to look a little bit lower here. We've been going around the horn. So down here in this white ribbon, the controls you saw at first were mute or unmute and camera on or off. You saw this already. Don't worry about this right now. Over in the right-hand corner, you have the ability to turn on captions for yourself. If you have students who mumble perhaps, or the volume on the device is not working as well as you'd like, or for whatever reason you want, if you want to turn on the captions and read as well as hear what the students are saying, you can certainly do that. Students can turn on captions for themselves. Notice it does shrink down the viewable space a little bit, so that's something worth keeping in mind. It is likely that you will be asked to present something on your screen. And so to present what's on your screen, you will tap on this button here, Present Now. From Present Now, you're given 3 choices. I typically will choose the entire screen. That way I don't have to be worried about where all the tabs are. I can pop in and out of different windows, and everything that's on my screen is something I need the kids to see. Nothing personal is on a different browser tab. I'm just ready to show them whatever's there. The second one is just for a window. Sometimes you have more than one window for a browser open, and if you want to be careful to only show things from one window, you may instead choose the second one. And then the third tab will open up a series of everything that you have open, basically, a list of what you have open, and you will choose the tab that is hosting an audio-video presentation. And by choosing this version, you will get the best performance with audio and video coming out of your device and into student devices. If I tap on a Chrome tab right now, you can see here that I've got, hold on, let me just move that. Yep, you can see that I have several tabs open in my browser, and this is probably the one I want to show. So if I click on that and tap Share, it takes me directly to the page, and at the same time provides the greatest presentation for my students. When I'm done showing this video, I will stop sharing by returning to my meeting. To find your meeting, raise this up a little bit. To find the meeting, because I did just change screens, I need to. But first, we want to hear from you. To find my meeting. So I'm done with this. I want to go back to our meeting. Maybe I need to teach face-to-face, or maybe I need to share a different screen. One of these tabs is my meeting. It is the one with the red circle. The red circle means that we are using this to host a video project of some sort. If I tap on this tab, I'm taken back to my regular meeting screen, and I can choose to stop presenting. And here we are, you see my face. I can go in and out of sharing my screen as frequently as I want to present my entire window. And where I'm sitting right now, I have 2 screens, so I'm going to choose the one where I see the meeting. And I'm just going to pop in and out of this meeting or the pages I need to show. It's very straightforward. Here's a list of things I need to show them, and then back to the meeting and stop presenting. You will find yourself doing this a little quicker all the time. Okay, finally, the last thing is down here in the lowest right corner, you see ellipses, 3 vertical dots. And when I tap on them, they open a little treasure chest of materials I might need. The first one says record meeting. I'm showing that to you but with a reminder that recording a meeting is something you will do rarely, but you should know it's there just in case you need to record something that is happening for disciplinary reasons, or to question the teacher about later, or give her an example. The meeting record button, out of a courtesy, you do need to let the people in the meeting know that you're recording. Never ever for publication. When you are recording a meeting, the meet recording will show up in the administrator's Google Drive when the meeting is over, and it might take some time after the meeting is over. It does take a while to render, but you should know it's here. When you tap on this, it will pop up a red record notification in the upper left-hand corner for everybody in the meeting. Change layout is a good place to know that you can sort of troubleshoot what kids are seeing or not seeing, or what you're seeing or not seeing. The tiled view, if you wish to see all of your students and you choose tiled view, right now, and it is early September, you will be a little disappointed because at the current time it is a 4x4 grid. Soon it will be 7x7, so you can see up to 49 students at one time, but letting you know where it's housed. And again, if you watch this training in October, it might actually be available for you. Full screen just eliminates some of the extra space and real estate that's wasted along the edges. Turn on captions, you already saw that button. Settings. Settings will allow you to make adjustments in your microphone and speakers. Also, little adjustments in your camera or resolution. Every once in a while, you'll get a student who is having some difficulty. You can point that out to them because they also have those ellipses. Or if you're having some trouble with yours, you can bounce in and out of those settings and see if you can improve the performance. Unlikely you'll need to use that much, but it's good to know it's there so you have some tools in your repertoire. At this time, I'm going to end this Google Meet and talk about what it takes to end a Google Meet with your students. When you leave, in theory, every child should also be dropped off the meeting. However, better safe than sorry. It is best protocol at this time, early September, to tell students they need to drop off the meeting, that the meeting is over and they need to leave. And you can watch them leave right here. You can even call them out by name and say, please go ahead and hang up. Go ahead and hang up. If you need to remove a student, by tapping that circle on that minus line, you could absolutely cause a problem for them entering this meet the next day or the next session. So please encourage kids to remove themselves from the meeting by just hanging up with that button there. But if you have to, you have to. It's best to see that the meeting is completely empty and then hang up yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and hang up myself, and we'll meet you back at Microsoft Teams in just a sec. Okay, just a quick reminder, we took a Google Classroom tour. We learned about basic navigation and pages. We learned where to find student materials and assignments. We learned a little bit about troubleshooting and helping students find things or read things. And we learned where you should be able to find the Meet link in a couple different locations. We also learned how to begin a Google Meet, how to control the chat and the presenting and the promise of updates that are coming, having to do with mute and other controls, how to troubleshoot a couple of things, how to present, and if you have questions, right now is a great time to make sure you've written those down before we go into our next topic. Now in Microsoft Teams, we'll be doing basically the same thing. Basic navigation, where to find student materials and assignments, how to troubleshoot a few common problems, and where to find the meeting link. Then we will go into Teams meeting, learn how to begin a Teams meeting, how to use some of the basic controls, the promise of some updates that are coming up, how to troubleshoot a couple of things, and then of course we'll have you write down any questions you may have. You might remember at the beginning we talked about this page right here. This is called ClassLink, and when the administrator came in, he or she logged into this, so this is not your account. And when using Google Classroom, he or she would have tapped on this. But to get to Teams at this time, the administrator is going to tap on Office 365. Microsoft is doing some updating, but right now, once in Office 365, navigate to this little icon right here. This is an app called Teams. When tapping on Teams, a user is taken into a page that will show all the different teams that he or she may belong to. Sometimes it takes the user into the most recently used teams. So over here on the left, this column, the word Teams appears, and this is really the page where one wants to land. But as I said, sometimes you don't land there the very first time. This purple column will help you find all the teams. Now these teams are movable just like they were in Google Classroom. So if you're in a classroom where you're going to be teaching periods 1, 2, and 3, here is period 1, here is period 3, here is period 2, and now by moving them, we've made it much more clear which periods and which teams you're going to be handling. To open, just tap, just like you would with the Google Classroom. And our quick tour is going to show you just first, just like with Google Classroom, where the basics are. First of all, this right here, the name of the team, is followed by some other little areas, and these are each called channels. And channels are just like subsections for this classroom. So a teacher may have just general, and that's it, because that's what comes with Teams. Or a teacher may have a whole series of channels. It's good to know that vocabulary, though, because as you're teaching class, the teacher may have referred to going into a certain channel to find something. So these are channels that the teacher only has created. Up here at the top, these are tabs. These tabs are also customized by the teacher. The tabs you see here are the most basic. In the general section, there are posts, which is a conversation area. And exactly opposite from Google Classroom, the most recent conversations are here at the bottom, and the older ones are at the top. Files are where materials are stored for the students that the teacher may have posted there, or students may be sharing here. Class notebook is a OneNote digital notebook. If the teacher refers to using that, it is also sometimes called OneNote. Assignments are under this tab, and by clicking on assignments, a teacher can see what assignments the teacher has prepared. They are organized differently than they are in Google Classroom. You can see that there are categories that the teacher may have set up, but more often I do see just assignments listed here. Kids at this point are going to know how to find their assignments, how to tap on them, how to respond to them. I will tap on one right here, read independently, and you can see that the status is not turned in. If I'm looking for more information about it, maybe I need to go into student view and read with the students to make sure this is clear to them. And just like Google Classroom, if there's reference materials or anything attached to it, I can tap to open them, and they will open right here inside Teams, so I don't get lost. If I'm done reading this, I can go over here to close, and it's taken me right back where I was before. To go back to the original, what looked like a home page, I'm just going to tap on Posts. Students may be posting conversations in here, and when they do, they can begin down here at the bottom, and then once they've started a conversation, other students may reply to that conversation down here by tapping Reply. So these are supposed to be themed conversations, so we're not bouncing around as much. We'll see if that works for you. So those are the basic ways to get around Microsoft Teams. Again, if you ever feel like you're lost, just go back to Posts, and remember the tabs are up here. They're pretty easy to keep track of. Now when it's time for a meeting, the kind folks at Microsoft have made it pretty easy to find the Meet button. And when I tap on the Meet button, I'm immediately taken in, to my team. And again, so I'm not distracting you guys, I'm going to turn off my camera. Meet now means it is time for me to go ahead and open this meeting. It is the appropriate time, maybe a few minutes before. When students arrive, same as Google Classroom, they should be muted, but they can unmute themselves pretty easily. And the good news is there are also autumn updates coming for Microsoft Teams. Those updates include greater control over muting students, controlling chat, controlling presentation, and being able to see more students at one time. As I move my mouse around this screen, you can see that this little menu pops up, and if I don't move around the screen, it'll sort of disappear, and I'll have to move my mouse again to make it show up. There it is. Close this column at the right. Here's where you find most of your controls. This is a timer for how long you've been in a meeting, which is great. You know I turned off the camera, and right now my microphone is on, but a line through it, of course, means that it is out. Here is where I'm going to share. It's not called Present Now, it's called Open Share Tray. When I tap on that, it opens this, what they're calling a tray, down here at the bottom. And for the most part, you will be choosing desktop or window. This allows you to share everything that's on this screen that you're using, similar to your entire window. I am filming this presentation on a computer that has 2 monitors, but I have to choose one of them, even if I only show one monitor. And I tap it, and my little share button turns blue, and now my students can see exactly what I see. If what I see is Savas Easy Bridge, if what I see is McGraw-Hill, if I go up and change to that multiplication video I was showing earlier, or if I go up to show them a place I want them to go inside Microsoft, whatever I see, my students see. And remember to find the meeting again. It is always going to be the tab that has the red dot on it. So no matter how many tabs you have open, the one with the red dot is your meeting. Let's go back down and look at what else is available for us. I'm going to stop presenting, sharing at this time. Right here, I can raise my hand, and so can my students. Where do we see that raised hand? You'll see the raised hand here in this column where your students are listed. So if I show participants, you can see right here I've raised my hand. When I hover over it, it disappears. If I have a list of students here with hands raised, I can tap on them to choose them, and then they can speak, or they can be allowed to speak if I unmute them, I should say. I'm going to lower my hand by tapping on that one more time, and you can see the hand disappeared from this side. So it's important to tell your students how they can lower their own hand. Again, I mentioned earlier that the chat controls are coming, but at this time, Teams is just like Google Classroom in that the messages are sent to the entire group. So there are no secret conversations between student A and student B. Finally, one last thing, don't be afraid to tap on ellipses or arrows or hamburgers when you see them. Sometimes they open up a little treasure box that will provide you with some options. I can check out device settings, I can enter full screen, I can end my meeting here. There's not a lot of options here, but I can definitely hunt down solutions for myself should something come up. Okay, and one last thing, we talked about attendance when we were talking about Google Meet, so it bears repeating that your job is definitely to take a paper attendance. And one way to do it is just like in Google Meet, where you can scroll through the names that are listed here, or you can call out an old-fashioned roll call, but then you are asking students to learn how to unmute themselves, especially some of those young ones that may not have done that before, so be careful. Your teacher may even give you a suggestion as the best way to do that. Now, if you want to end the meeting, I'm going to recommend best protocol is to make sure your students know that the meeting is ending, have them remove themselves. If they don't do that, you can go in and remove students one at a time. I can't show you that because I don't have a visitor, but there are these ellipses here. One of them will say remove. That is it. If you have questions about Microsoft Teams or Teams meetings, right now is a great time to jot those down. We're going to spend a couple minutes on Zoom, and then we'll end our short training. Okay, you'll recall that we visited ClassLink at the very beginning. We saw it in the middle in order to get to Office 365 and Microsoft Teams. If you're going to be hosting a Zoom meeting, you will not be joining Zoom from this page. Even though you might see an app in your ClassLink, you will not be joining it from there. The teachers have been told already, and I've mentioned this a few times, they must store their meeting links inside their classrooms. Whether it's the Google Classroom or the Microsoft Team, they have to host the link there. And so here I am inside the Google Classroom, and there would be a message here, or maybe a little bit lower, or maybe inside here that'll say, use this Zoom link for today's meeting. It's possible to even have it hosted in classwork. That's why it's important to make sure you've spoken with the principal and make sure you know exactly where the links are before that administrator leaves the room. So let's pretend that I have found a link and I tapped on it right here and I'm being taken into a Zoom meeting. Okie dokie, we are in a Zoom meeting, and again, it's pretty distracting having all those personal items behind me, and you will be in a more professional environment. So I'm just going to go over here and turn off my camera, and there's just my name. The students, by the way, if you had the need to do that, it would not have your name on there. Remember that you're logged into everything using that administrator's account. There is a very familiar looking toolbar. This toolbar is similar to that which you have for Google Meet or that you would be using for Microsoft Teams meetings. So over here in the far left corner is the mute and video buttons. You see little arrows next to them, which indicates that there's a little bit more power to look into them. You shouldn't really need to toggle those open and see, but just in case a student has difficulty, you might be able to give a little bit of support. As I scan across, the security button gives me a couple of things that I can control. One of them is turning off chat, which is awesome. I would not want my students to be able to chat unless I am controlling or have something to do with that chat, or it's for a good way to share links and information. There are lots of great reasons to chat, but when somebody is chatting, and let me go to the chat window and demonstrate, in Zoom, they can chat with the different people in the meeting. And so we could have 30 people in a meeting, all listed here, and student A and student B could be having a private conversation. And this is not the time for student A and student B to have a private conversation, so they should not be allowed to do that. And to control it, again, under security, I can remove the ability to chat. Also under security, I can and should remove the ability for students to rename themselves. This may have already been taken care of for you, but there are some really clever kids out there who have named themselves Restarting or named themselves after another student. It's the kind of mischief that often happens with a substitute teacher, and so I would disable that as well if it's not already disabled for you. Your students should be in a waiting room, and they will land in there as soon as you allow them in. You will know you have somebody waiting in a waiting room because you'll get a little indicator, a little colorful indicator. Right now, these are my participants, just me, but there could be a list right here. You're not going to be inviting anybody from outside. Again, here is our mute and unmute all people in our meeting. If I want to unmute an individual student, I'll be able to tap on that next to their name. And if I need to mute an individual student, just one, I will be able to do that. You can see why, with a little bit extra control, Zoom has become a popular alternative to Google Meet and Microsoft Teams. We already checked out the chat window and talked about that. Sharing a screen is pretty straightforward. The whole screen option is usually the very first one. Because I have two monitors I'm using right now, you can see I just have two that are called screen. All these other ones are just individual tabs or pages. And so to be safe, I usually recommend sharing the whole screen and popping in and out of everything as I need it. I'm not going to demonstrate that right now because you've seen me do that twice. You have a record button, and as we discussed earlier, you can record if you need to. It's not going to be for any kind of publication, and typically it would only be used for somebody for maybe a sample or question or a disciplinary issue. That recording shows up in the administrator's account, of course. Just a couple quick comments. Closed caption is not the same as subtitles, so you'll be unlikely to use that. Reactions are always positive. It's either a hand clap or a thumbs up. Your students have that as well. I know I always tell you that you can tap on ellipses, and you're welcome to tap on these, but there's really nothing here you'll want to use, at least not right now. In the upper left-hand corner, we do see a shield that reminds us of the kind of controls that Google Classroom offered us in the blue shield. And this is where the settings are, like the master settings. Your teacher has probably already set all these up. You probably do not need to open this, but should there ever be a problem and you want to pop in here and see what you can modify, I suppose that's not a bad thing to know about. And then, of course, we do want to make sure everybody leaves the meeting, but in Zoom, it's a little bit easier. If I go down to the lower right-hand corner and I'm ready to end the meeting, of course, I'm going to warn the kids that our session is over. And when I tap on end, I get the option of ending the meeting for everybody in the meeting. So I don't have to pick them off one at a time, and I don't have to beg them to leave the meeting. I just end the meeting for all. And with that, I'm going to end this training for all as well. I hope you got something out of this. Please feel free to reach out to tech trainers at chino.k12.ca.us. That is TECHTRAINERS with the same suffix that you have in your credentials. And there are 4 of us in that department who can help you out with your technology and access issues.